I manage a tech startup incubator in Berlin, and last month, this guy from California walked in for our orientation. He looked around at the co-working space, then asked where everyone kept their health insurance paperwork. I told him most people don't carry it because healthcare is automatic here. He laughed and said, "Right, but where's the real paperwork? You know, the stuff you negotiate with your employer?" I explained that healthcare isn't tied to employment in Germany. He stared at me like I'd claimed gravity worked backwards, then spent 20 minutes explaining how real healthcare systems require you to prove you deserve coverage through hard work. He pulled up articles about American insurance networks on his phone, insisting that our system was probably just temporary until we figured out the employer model. Cousin runs a university admissions office in Oslo. An American student applied and kept calling about payment plans for her tuition. My cousin explained tuition is free for everyone, even international students. The girl said, "I understand there's financial aid, but what's the sticker price?" My cousin repeated, 0 kroner. The student got frustrated and said American universities charge $60,000 yearly because that's how you ensure quality. Education and free universities must be basically community colleges. She submitted a follow-up email with a breakdown of how Norwegian degrees were probably worthless since investment equals value. I work at a housing cooperative in Copenhagen. This American couple toured our building and asked about the down payment. I explained, "We don't require one, just a small membership fee." The husband interrupted, "But what about building equity? That's the whole point of homeownership." I told him our model prioritizes stable housing over profit. He launched into a speech about how equity is freedom and claimed Danes must be trapped in rental poverty. His wife nodded, adding that without the pressure of a mortgage, people probably lack motivation to succeed. I'm a postal worker in Helsinki, and this guy from Texas came to ship a package. He handed me cash, then waited. I processed it and gave him his receipt. He didn't move. Finally, he asked, "Where do I tip you?" I said we don't accept tips for postal services. He insisted, "Everyone tips service workers, it's basic respect." I explained, "Our wages are fair without tips." He got defensive, claiming that tipping drives excellence, and that without it, I probably coast through my job. He left a €5 note on the counter anyway, saying he wouldn't let me suffer under socialist wage suppression. I had to mail it back to his hotel. My brother works at a pharmacy in Auckland. An American tourist needed antibiotics and seemed confused when the pharmacist consulted with her for free. She kept asking, "When does the doctor come in?" My brother explained pharmacists here handle minor prescriptions. She said, "That doesn't sound legal. Pharmacists just count pills." He showed her his qualifications, master's degree in clinical pharmacy. She shook her head and said American pharmacists were real healthcare providers because they worked in hospitals, and our system was clearly cutting corners. She asked if she could pay extra to see an actual medical professional. One run a public library in Amsterdam. This woman from Florida asked about our annual membership fee. I told her it's free for residents. She said, "Nothing's free. What's the catch?" I explained taxes cover it. She laughed. "So you're saying the government just gives you books? That's not sustainable." She went on about how American libraries charge late fees and sometimes membership costs to teach responsibility, and that our model would collapse within a year. Took out 6 books but told me she'd donate money anyway because she felt guilty about exploiting the system. I teach high school in Wellington. We had an American exchange teacher shadowed me for a week. After the first day, she pulled me aside and asked why I hadn't assigned homework. I told her we assign homework twice a week maximum to avoid burnout. She looked horrified and said, "Kids need daily homework to build discipline. That's how you prepare them for college." I mentioned our students perform well internationally. She dismissed it, insisting that real learning requires pressure, and suggested our approach was why other countries fall behind. America, she started giving my students extra assignments. Anyway, until the principal asked her to stop. My sister manages a cafe in Reykjavik. An American customer ordered coffee and sat down. When she brought it to his table, he said, "I'll tip you when I leave. Don't worry." She said that wasn't necessary. He insisted, "I always tip well. I'm not one of those cheap tourists." She explained wages here don't depend on tips. He got louder. "That's exploitation. You're basically working for free." She tried to clarify that she earns about $22 per hour. He shook his head. "You're trained to say that. I know how service jobs work." He left a $20 bill under his saucer and told her to fight for better conditions. She donated it to charity. I work at a restaurant in Lisbon. This guy from Chicago came in and studied the menu for 10 minutes, then asked, "What's the catch with these prices?" I said there wasn't one. He pointed at a seafood dish listed at €12 and said, "This would be $40 in the States. Are these like child portions?" I assured him the servings were normal. He ordered it, and when it arrived, full-sized and beautifully plated, he took a photo and said, "I don't trust this. Either the fish is fake or you're going bankrupt." He spent the meal analyzing how American restaurants charge more because quality costs money and suggested we were undervaluing ourselves. He left insisting we'd raised prices by next year. My uncle owns a bakery in Brussels. An American tourist bought a croissant and coffee for €3. She seemed suspicious and asked if we used real butter. My uncle confirmed we did, explained our supplier. She said that's impossible. Real butter croissants cost at least $8. She bit into it, and her eyes widened, but instead of enjoying it, she said, "You're probably getting subsidies or something. This isn't a real free market." She returned the next day with the same questions, then lectured my uncle about how American prices reflect true value, and our pricing model was probably illegal under some trade regulation. She bought 4 more anyway. I'm a bartender in Prague. This couple from Arizona ordered beers to half-liters. When I told them the price was about $3 total, the man laughed and said, "You mean $3 each, right?" I clarified, "No, total." His wife looked concerned and asked if the beer was watered down. I explained, "Czech beer is Worldrin." The husband insisted, "Good beer costs good money. You get what you pay for." He tasted it, admitted it was excellent, then claimed American craft beer was still superior because Americans invested $12 per pint into quality. They stayed for 3 rounds, but kept insisting our prices meant something's wrong with the economy here. I drive a taxi in Tokyo. This American businessman got in and immediately asked why there wasn't a tip option on the payment screen. I told him tipping isn't practiced here. He said, "That's weird. How do you make decent money?" I explained our fares are regulated and fair. He shook his head, "But what's your incentive to be nice? In America, tips motivate good service." I've mentioned Japanese service standards are high regardless. He disagreed, claiming humans need financial incentives, and suggested our industry was probably suffering. When we arrived, he tried to hand me cash anyway, saying he'd fix the system one ride at a time. I politely refused 3 times before he gave up. My friend works at a train station in Zurich. An American tourist asked why first-class tickets were only 20 francs more than second class. She seemed convinced there was a mistake. My friend confirmed the price. She said in America, premium upgrades cost 3 times as much, because that's how capitalism works. You're telling me I get leather seats and free coffee for $20? He nodded. She insisted this was anti-business, and that Swiss railways were leaving money on the table. She bought first class, but spent the ride photographing everything, saying she'd show people back home how Europe doesn't understand market segmentation. I'm a tour guide in Barcelona. During a walking tour, an American couple asked why we didn't drive between locations. I explained that the old city's streets are narrow and pedestrian-focused. The husband said that's inefficient. Americans would never tolerate walking this much. I mentioned Europeans walk more as part of daily life. He claimed, walking everywhere means your infrastructure's underdeveloped. Cars equal progress. His wife agreed, adding that American cities were designed for success, while European cities were stuck in the past. struggled to keep up with the group, but refused to acknowledge that maybe the walking was intentional urban planning. At the end, they asked if Barcelona had plans to modernize with wider roads. I work for a language school in Montreal. An American enrolled in our French immersion program. On the first day, she asked why we didn't offer it in English. I explained it's an immersion program. You learn by speaking French. She said, "But how will I understand anything? In America, we teach languages with English explanations." I told her immersion is proven effective. She argued, "That's not realistic. People need translation to learn." She attended one class, then complained to the director that our teaching method was exclusionary, and American programs were more inclusive because they respected English speakers. She demanded a refund, insisting we advertise our English-free policy more clearly, as if immersion wasn't implied by the name. I work at a relocation agency in Stockholm. We help people move to Sweden, and lately, half our clients are Americans. Last week, a guy from Denver came in for his consultation. I walked him through healthcare, education, housing, all the standard benefits. He listened quietly, then asked, "So, when does the catch come?" I told him there wasn't one. He said, "There's always a catch." This sounds too good. I explained it's just a different system with different priorities. He sat back and said, "Maybe the American dream isn't American anymore." Then he signed his paperwork and booked his flight for next month. I think he's the 15th person this year who said almost the exact same thing.